is changing, the world's on fire. I want to do my part to inspire change. I want to make my home a sanctuary of love and peace and harmony, and be the change I want to see. The earth is my home, the earth is my mother. We will never have any other, to help renew, rebuild, rebirth, a new way to be on earth. I wanna ignite, catalyze, take flight, burn like the sun, dispelling the night, help humanity find its way back home.
Welcome, everyone. We are once again doing our Ignite Illuminator series, our interview series with our illuminators. And today, our illuminator is Bisia Belina. And Bisia runs Sound Body Studio, and she's going to tell us all about that shortly. So once again, I'm Alice Van Blockland, partner with Ignite Transformative Events, and my partner here.
I am Maggie Reedy, and we're so happy to be here with you, where we take illuminators, and we define an illuminator as a woman of a certain age with a certain expertise in her life that is moving forward with purpose and passion, wellness, joy, and vibrancy in her third chapter of life. And that we invite the wisdom and the learning and the experience of these illuminators who are continuing to live vibrant and beautiful lives. And Bisia, you are the definition of an illuminator for us.
Absolutely, you embody all of those qualities. And so we're super excited to hear about what you've been doing and what led you to it. And I'm just going to briefly share my experience, and then Maggie wants to do the same before you give us the more fuller sense. So I met Bisia years ago now, when I was taking voice lessons and was still a bit constrained in my delivery. And my voice teacher at the time recommended I go and see Bisia. So I went to her class, and I was still holding back quite a bit. And you know how I always think of it, Bisia, is like you are the maestro, and you orchestrate this beautiful sound movement experience for individuals to come together in this beautiful work of art that's sort of like sand art. It just happens in the moment. It's very fleeting. Nothing's recorded, but everyone walks away feeling so much higher than when they came into the room. And then Maggie, you had quite a different experience. You want to share that with us?
Well, I first met Bisia. This is a very long time. We're going back at least 15 or 20 years. And I was working at the Child Sexual Abuse Society. And the staff were at a time when we were very, very burnt out. I remember that, like, very heavy caseloads. I remember very heavy supervision meetings. I remember a lot going on. And they said we were going to have this guest come to work with us. And I think we were all pretty skeptical. And Bisia walks in this room, and I can't remember every detail, but I do know that she just like unleashed this sound and movement in us that helped us to discharge a lot of stuff that we had been carrying without the blah 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 talking about the cases.
Yeah.
We got to discharge so much energy and lift out of it. And I know that it was a complete pivot point in our way to move forward with the service work that we were doing. So that's one that was magical and powerful. The second one was when I crawled onto Bisia's table because I was pregnant and I couldn't walk. My husband literally kind of lifted me to Bisia's table for her massage table at her home, I believe, or her studio. And I literally couldn't walk with my sciatica. And I walked off the table at the end of that treatment. And I just, yeah.
Hallelujah.
Exactly what I was thinking. Well, those are such great
And
stories.
so that is 28 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
Bisia,
that
you're
so that tells me that Soundbody Studio was born 32 years ago.
wow.
So I've been a registered massage therapist for 40, just under 40. And then 10 years after I started being an RMT, I developed Soundbody Studio. But at the time it was called VoiceWorks
Mhm.
and then became Vocal Body Arts.
Right.
So holy smokes, man. Yeah, this has been my passion. This has been my stabilizer. This has been my little voice inside my head that said, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. Okay. So, you take your fear and your courage at the same, one under one armpit, one under the other, and you just do it. So, and I'm thrilled with what I do. I
Mhm.
love what I do, whether it's the massage that I've now reduced because I'm semi-retired and the voice.
Yeah. Well, you have a
I-
really interesting background in music too. I'm just recalling little bits of stories you've shared of your upbringing and your family. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
My parents came from Poland after the war. Polish people are singers.
Mhm.
Christmas memories are people in their pajamas, the family in pajamas singing 5-part harmonies to the Polish Christmas carols. English Christmas carols were not, that was not there. I mean, we spoke Polish at home. All my little friends on the street were English, but I also went to French school. So in terms of the songs that we would sing, I didn't know English nursery rhymes. I didn't know French nursery rhymes. I knew Polish nursery rhymes. And then the older I got and the more friends I had, whether in French or English school, then I would learn those songs. My sister taught me how to harmonize. Musically, my voice and music have always been there to save me, in the sense that first I was like everybody else who has an affinity to voice. I was directed towards pop music, European cafe music, singing in different languages. That was where I went, right? So I was a jazz singer, I was a folk singer, I was blah, blah, blah. But after a certain age, when the kids were already, teenagers and stuff, singing at a bar really does nothing for me, nothing. So I tried choirs, and they're beautiful. I mean, Victoria is a city of choirs and bookstores. So I tried a bunch of choirs. The Getting Higher Choir was fun, to be with 150 people singing a particular thing, but it didn't cut through. So when I became a massage therapist in 86, I realized 6 months later, like, what the hell have I done? I've just committed myself to a career of caregiving. How the hell am I going to survive that? I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I take care of kids, I take care of people, I get a grip. How am I going to balance that? I can't keep over giving. And so then I started to just be brave. And I went to particular, two events happened. One, I went to see the Bulgarian Female State Vocal Choir. And in Act 1, these women were dressed in black and it was really flip and dour. Act 2, they were all in beautiful colored outfits. And who completely magnetized me was the conductor. I saw this woman doing this, this and this and that. And I went, that's my next career. I'm going to be a choir conductor. Okay. So then I got braver and braver and allowed myself to develop improvisational voice. Was in a vocal group called the Flying Mermaids for 4 years. And all we did was improvisational movement. We had met at a jazz workshop that was 2 week long. fell in love with each other, and for 4 years composed music. We would spend once a week, 4 hours at a time, just like somebody bring something, somebody do something. So we recorded pieces. We went to art galleries and sang in front of paintings.
Wow.
Like we did very out there stuff.
I
so
love
the
the name, the Flying Mermaids.
The Flying Mermaids. Yeah, it was wonderful. So that died, and then I went, okay, I can't, this is my direction in life. So I rented a recording studio, and for 2 years, I went to the studio for 6 hours a week. And I sang with complete permission. I learned how to be like, who's the woman that sang "Sweet Dreams Are Made of These"?
Annie Lennox.
Annie Lennox. Yeah.
So Annie Lennox, and there was another woman, Annie Lennox, showed me the way to to singing in multiple voices. So I learned how to record my root voice, then my harmony 1, harmony 2, harmony 3, counter harmony, blah, blah, blah. So I learned the multiples within me. And that in some way became a thesis for me. Instead of going to university and writing a paper and getting, molded into something they wanted, I went, I'm just going to do what I'm doing. I'm releasing a CD. That's my graduate studies right there. So what I learned from that is when you are emotionally healthy, you have all these personalities within you, right? There's the me who's ferocious. There's the me who's pathetic. There's the me who's an avoider, who's all kinds of things, right? But as long as I know who the central me is, I'm in control.
You're talking about internal family systems. You're speaking my language.
Right.
You're speaking my language. Yeah.
Right. So in terms of composing music, if I know in the discipline of music that beat and time is what keeps a band together. So as long as we all know that's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, I can deviate as a singer. I can go anywhere as long as I know where that one pulse is. If I transfer that to what I learned and understood to what I believe, is that when I compose a piece of music, there's my root voice. And then that root voice becomes a stable link for all these other components, all these other voices that then create the piece. If my root voice is not stable, then it disintegrates. So if I take it to another place, into the place of shamanic work, when you're going to go on a journey, the most important part of the journey is the guy who's beating the drum. Boom, boom, boom. Because the farther away you go, and if you lose touch with that drum, that pulse, you're gone. You have no way of coming back. So the pulse is key. Excuse me.
Well, it's like a compass. That's what I'm getting.
Very much so. I would tell women in groups that getting over a cold, that if you are experiencing a really bad PMS,
He hasn't.
don't just sing la 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 la. Sing with a pulse, because PMS is just as a disintegrative experience as going on a journey. You need to be grounded. If you're unstable during PMS, you need something stable to anchor you. So music is the tool for me in terms of anchoring. So if I extrapolate from that, what is VoiceWorks? How is it different from a choir? How is it different? It's different because I'm not teaching you how to sing Let It Be by the Beatles. I'm not teaching you how to sing any song. I'm teaching you how to access the music inside you. And what's that music based on? It's based on a feeling, on an emotion. It's based on experiences. So let's say you had a really rough day and you're driving home and you're pissed off, you're tired, you're pissed, you're angry, you're like frustrated, confused. Okay, it's raining, you're driving. The windshield wipers are, that's your pulse. That's your anchor right there. So you can start speaking. Oh my God, I had such a rough day today. It was cruel what happened today. I was confused by people's dishonesty. I was getting mixed messages. Okay, so here I am. I'm talking it. That's still here. When you sing, it transforms it. So here's the pulse of the windshield wipers. Oh, today was such a rough day. Oh, yeah. I can't make out what he said, but I know it wasn't what he meant. Blah, 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 right? So then you go into your emotive self. Whoa, we ain't gonna put up with that kind of shit no more. What? And on you go. So there's a bravery, there's a permission to be grounded in what you're feeling, moving it through music, rhythm, time, harmony, melody, texture, tone, that all have a link to emotion, and you compose yourself through music.
And I see so much in there for full self-expression. When we hold those emotions, we actually get out of alignment. When we give ourselves safety and a tool to fully self-express, we honor and release, we honor and release, we honor and release, we come back to center. You're taking me right back to learning this with you so many years ago and being in the car. And I remember doing it with what I had learned from you and
Nice.
taking those hard days at the Child Sexual Abuse Society, and wanting to transform it before I got home to my own children. And I don't consider myself a singer, so I was pretty skeptical when I first learned you, but you taught me how to use my own voice in this way to honor and release. So that by the time I got home, I was aligned and grounded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing of beauty and it's so experiential. I'm listening to us talk about it and I'm thinking it's the feeling, like the physical feeling in our bodies of what's occurring. When you talked about the transformative experience, I've brought friends to your sessions and I remember we're all a little reluctant initially to participate, but the way that you organize people and the way that you bring all the elements together, where you have people doing a certain sound and then you layer it with another different kind of sound, and then there's another sound, and then there's sometimes an opportunity for people to solo and just go with it with no words sometimes, and then sometimes words come. And I remember the breakthrough moment for me where all of a sudden I just like got out of my head, finally. It's like, just go with it. And all of a sudden, the next thing I knew, I was like down on the ground and slapping the floor. And
Wow.
Huge, big voice of, whoa. And you're like, there she is.
There she is. There she is.
And that's why your voice teacher told you to go see Bisia.
That's right. Yeah. So it's a magical thing. I know that there's what do I want to say? You're always in charge. Like there's always a methodology, but it's so organic and so free flowing, and you just trust yourself so much that I think people in turn begin to trust
Yeah.
themselves. And it's a
Yeah.
real art. Like most people don't have that much confidence in themselves that they can then instill it in others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Permission, to me, that's what voice works. When I did the teacher training, there was 4 women that went through the teacher training, and oh man, good. I think that was 6 years ago now. And that was one of the key components, was permission to step out of the box you created. One of the principles of VoiceWorks, which is part of Sound Body Studio, and that's where movement was a part of it. So what's fear? Fear is something that makes you sit in a chair and you're not going to get up. You're not even going to turn your eyes to the left and right. So, because that's the limitation you've set. So in VoiceWorks, I'll go, ah. So I still have the safety of fear is handy to have, right? I mean, my mother used to say, you have to transform fear into reasonable doubt. So this to me was transforming fear into reasonable doubt, because fear would say, no, don't do that. And reasonable doubt says, well, yeah, well, you could have, there'll be consequences for you doing this. You might hurt somebody, you might break glass, you might scare yourself, for one thing, that you've busted through. Like we all have culturally, I think there's cultural definitions of how much space we can take, but there's also familial definitions of how much space we can take, and depends on who we were within the family system.
Yeah.
Were we the rescuer, the saver, the one that always left and never was there? So when you come into VoiceWorks and I'm challenging you to like push against that wall, the barrier. I remember doing that with that group at Mary Manning.
Yeah.
And what I described depression as was, depression is like living in a low ceilinged basement apartment.
Yes.
And your ceiling is here and your walls might be here. So with you take air,
yeah. Yeah. Expansion.
so you're lifting the restriction. So all of a sudden you've gone from this amount of permissible space to like, ha, I got this, man. And I got this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the expansion within. And I, the internal family systems is the thread that I'm listening to as you speak, because we played those roles in our family and we learned certain ways of being, and we responded to certain expectations, and we saw ourselves through other people's eyes and responses, and we all got molded and shaped in some way, and it became our self-talk and our pattern inside. And then the thing is, we have there's a whole village in here. There's my little scared one and my little hurt one and my little one that gets too sensitive and wants to hide. And then there's also my bold one who's like, give me more space, back off. and all of those parts are in each one of us. We all have a village inside of here. And what you're speaking about is a safe place and an expansive tool to have full self-expression of all of those parts, and know that there's a rhythm, a grounded me who gets to have this one come out and that one come out, and it doesn't define me. And I can have the me hold space for all of it, and play with it and have full expression in movement, in sound, in energy, in release, in honoring. And it's just a beautiful way that goes way beyond words, way beyond the cognitive, to come back into alignment.
Because I'm not going to resolve, I mean, living a lifetime where, there's ups and downs and circuitous routes and detours and blah. You learn, you can either succumb to all that stuff, or you go, you make decisions, right? Like you make decisions like, well, these people are not good for me. Why am I hanging out with them?
Yeah.
Why am I waiting for their permission? If they say yes, then I can shine. Okay, well, that's a warped that's a child's sense of self-defining.
That's a
Mhm.
So when you move into your own adulthood, you self-actualize.
Mhm.
That's what Sound Body became. It was the tool that was based from my history within my family of voice and movement music, where I just kept expanding the possibilities. And the healthier I got, because being an RMT for the first 6 years of my life, in my profession, I thought, I'm really depressed. I'm exhausted. I'm really depressed. But it's not my stuff.
Yeah. You
I'm
absorbed
under
it.
the cloak of other people's sorrow, whether it's their physical pain or their emotional pain, their psychological pain, their imagined pain. I had to learn how to break through.
Mhm.
So going to choirs was good, but it didn't break through. Having my own band, Bisia and the Jackson Street Trio, that I had for 5 years, fun. I learned a hell of a lot. It didn't break through. I was singing Dietrich, Madonna, whoever, right? The songs that meant a lot to me. I sang all them and they were fantastic, but it didn't break the plexiglass of sorrow.
Yes.
So when I started in the recording studio and I sang, as I said, 6 hours a week, all of a sudden this plexiglass shattered, like completely shattered. So the spark, the who I was like, oh, here I am. Oh. So my excitement became, oh, effusive, big, curious, potential. It gave me energy. And it gave me the faith and trust to listen to my instincts that kept saying, go this way, go this way, go this way. So my inner voice became really strong, really strong.
I love that you use the analogy of the spark, because we talk about that a lot in Ignite, that everybody has the divine spark within them, but over time, things can accumulate, layer over top of it, and that spark is like a little pilot light, can go down, 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 and be barely there. And we want all of our events to help women reignite that spark.
Yeah.
So as you're talking and you had that experience of coming fully into yourself of, wow, here I am.
Yeah.
It's like
all
remembering
women to have that.
remembering the truth of who you are, of who we are.
Yeah.
We absorb and inhale and carry so much that we don't even know. And we have so many stories in our head and so many stories that we carry that we've inherited and absorbed from our ancestors and from culture and from colonialism and from blah, 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 blah. And right. So like, I love that. I love this experience with you today. That reminds me of the power of this work.
Yeah. So the way that I've learned, there was another interesting experience, after there was the choir conductor from the female state Bulgarian choir that inspired me to go, you're going to be a conductor in your next life. Well, my next life is tomorrow. It's not just today. It's not next lifetime. It's now. The other experience that was powerful to kick me off the ledge was I would go to opera, because opera is hysterically fun for me. And I would look at these people all in their outfits and their ridiculous stories of unrequited love and blah, blah, blah. And I would like, look at these. This is idiotic. They're singing the most incredible pieces of music with the most trained voices, but really it's ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. So I thought, if they can do that, I can do what I want to do, which is improvisational voice. So you can sing, that I have filled this room with that sound.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm a depressive personality, I remember giving a workshop for people who had depression. And I said, okay, well, where are you? Are you in a blues mode, funk mode, um, uh, sad gospel? Like, where are you within your depression? What's the time? What's the rhythm? Poor, poor me. Oh, I'm a poor, poor me. Poor, poor me. So if I play with a word, you know, like kids play with words. If I say po 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 po, well, that's gonna become something. Po 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 po. Oh, po me, so po. I'm so po. I want some more money. I want some more light. I want some more hot. I want some more space. I'm not so poor. So the other, what's that trajectory? The trajectory is when you're composing a piece of music. To compose yourself, the first verse can be blues. You can identify what the hell's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Da, 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 da. So that's verse 1. Verse 2, you move it. You move it from blues to maybe gospel. You move from gospel to spiritual. By the time you've hit spiritual, you're not blues anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The other reality about music, if you're blue, you're going to sing low. Oh, I can't pick up my head no more.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to change where you are, you start singing higher.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can't raise my head no more, but I can raise my eyes to the light, as an example. So you're helping yourself vibrationally by going from a low tone to a higher tone. So a very simple exercise that I've done in groups is you do the scale, but you do it do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. Now within that 7, 8, where did you feel a change in feeling or vibration?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So was it
Between
do,
fa and
re,
me. Yeah.
mi? Between mi and fa, things shift.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a 10-second exercise you can do in the car. That's a
Right.
10-second exercise you can do in the bathroom before you're ready to come out of the bathroom and shave your kid's head because he did something so stupid. I'm gonna cut your hair so short for what you just did. But you discharge the charge.
You know, Bisha, that reminds me, if I can, of, I think definitely this came inspired by you, and maybe not exactly your words, but this is what I did with it. After experiencing you at the Mary Manning Center, and then coming to some of your voice body workshops, when my children were driving me crazy and I just wanted to chop their heads off, but I didn't want to, have social services at my door or or damage their self-esteem, because I'm aware enough as a counselor and as a psychotherapist that I didn't want to do that. But here's the energy that needed to be honored and released. So what I would do is I would break into a gibberish song. Like, I'd be so mad. So I'd be telling them off, but it would come out like, and, I would honor and release the energy of the anger, the frustration, or whatever it was. And sure enough, the energy would change because they would, first of all, look at me like I had 3 heads. Secondly, sometimes join in with me and we would co-create some kind of energetic.
Yes.
But we started out, where I started out with the intention of, I don't want to kill you. And now we're playing and laughing together. And now we can make dinner or whatever it is.
Yes, you can move on.
Yeah.
You're
Honor
not-
and release, honor and
Yeah.
release, honor
Yeah.
and release
Yeah.
without judgment. I'm a bad mom because I'm thinking these thoughts, without, oh, I'm actually doing it. And now I feel bad because I've injured my child
Yeah.
emotionally and hopefully not physically. But, without any of that and without the story of it, to just give ourselves on a daily basis, because life is hard. And
Oh
we
my
have
God.
so many dips and curves and turns and interactions and all kinds of things with our environments and the people in them and with ourselves and all of our parts and all of our stories, all of it, right? So how can we have more and more tools to honor and release through movement and sound and whatever it takes, so that we don't get stuck?
Yeah.
Honor and release and move forward and come back into alignment with the truth of who we are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was beautifully said. I have another question for you, Bisia. So we talked a little bit about this before we hit the record, and our question is, when you get stuck or things are really hard and you don't feel like you can get through it, what's something that really propels you forward?
Well, there's two things, right? There was the pulling the lines in was one, and then
Yeah.
there was the prayer that I composed. So I think I'm going to go to the prayer that I composed. In terms of propelling forward, sometimes that's not what's needed.
Mm,
What's needed is to pull in.
mm,
So this prayer I wrote when I was going on canoe trips with a friend of mine on the West Coast. So we would go to Tofino, paddle on the outside to Vargas Island, and spend a week on a beach. And there was a lot of writing. There was a lot of quiet. We spent a whole week almost not talking. We would only speak in the evenings. We would, draw, sculpt, make sandcastles, go swimming, blah, blah, blah. So it was a huge rest. But one day I remember it was absolutely pissing down rain. So we were in our tents for like 24 hours. And I stepped out. I took my umbrella. I sat on a log. And I realized I connected to my sorrow and my exhaustion. And that exhaustion was based on my massage work. It was based on, I think my father was dying at the time. And I looked at the heavens and I went, I'm so grateful that the sky is crying, because that way I don't have to cry.
mm,
I can be with the tears of nature.
mhm,
And this prayer came together. And the prayer is, I light the fire of your presence. I light the fire of your grace. I light the fire of your stillness. All that I give freely comes from you. All that I receive freely comes from you. I am warmed and illuminated. I never stand alone.
Hmm.
That's so beautiful.
So I share it with you. I pass it on. Make it your own prayer. If you're not a believer of, presence, or you're not a believer of God, or it's just the word that pisses you off, find your own word. But the whole point is, in this meditative prayer, it made me still, and it made me aware that nothing comes from me. If I am filling myself with calmness, clarity, assuredness, faith that everything's going to work out in the way it's going to work out, then I'm present and ready to be present to what comes forward.
Yes.
So I have faith.
Yes. Yes. So beautiful.
So I use that a lot.
I think the other one is just as important, Bisia. I think that a lot of our audience and Alice and I can certainly relate to this. We have so many ways that we are serving our children, our community, our workplace, our aging parents, our grandchildren, our, you know, the women who are part of our Ignite community have so many places that they give and contribute. And I remember you taught me this one so long ago. So I would like you to explain the pulling in of the lines, please.
Okay. There's several ways that I can do this because this visualization has transformed over the years. So therefore, if I'm going to inspire you by a concept, then you make it your own. I'll give you some ideas. So the original idea presented itself. I think I've been traveling to Montreal twice a year when my mother was dying. So she'd die and she'd come back, and she'd die and she'd come back. It's like, oh my God, Mom, please. You got to find the door to heaven, please. Anyway, so.
I just went through that, yes. Yeah.
I know, it's so hard. So the image was, I drew a woman holding a bowl, but I drew her from the back. So I saw the back of this woman, and that woman was me. And she was holding this big, big bowl. And inside, I realized that in the bowl, there were all these, the bowl was flipping empty, man. And what was in there were my energy lines. But all of them had left the bowl. One was connected to Montreal, one was connected to so right. So of the 12 energy lines I had within me, they were all gone. They were maybe still attached to the bowl, but they were like, some of them were pulling really tight. So because the imagination is the most brilliant thing in the world, I became extremely good at taking an energy line, following it, seeing who it was attached to, and saying, because I'm in the land of imagination, I'm cutting. And this energy line would go, and I did that with all 12 energy lines. So by the end of that visualization, which could be anywhere from 5 minutes to 25 minutes, depends on how much you want to develop it, my bowl was full. Mm-hmm. No other decision had to be made. Just filling my bowl.
Yeah.
So that's one version. Another version I want to tell you about is I love the beach. The beach is really important for my psyche. So one day, I did this with a patient of mine, actually. I said, she was on the table, and I said, in your imagination, you're going to open this door from my treatment room, and you're going to find yourself on a beach. And it's a beautiful beach. And you're going to walk to a place on the beach where you're above the high tide line. And you look to your right and to your left, and you see a whole bunch of women at the beach, and they're pulling something. And you look at them more, and you see they're pulling nets in. Mm-hmm. They're pulling themselves back in. Mm. So I transferred the net of these beautiful women in saris, and the sun and the wind, and the rhythmic pulling of the fishing lines in. Mm. And then they could untangle them, and then they could fix them. Yeah. And then they're going to throw them out again. So that's another variation on the same theme. The third variation is, again, you're in bed, and you imagine that you open the door from your bedroom, and you're walking down a path, and is a tree-lined path, and you hear a river. You're following the sound of the river as you go through the tree-lined path. You go through Salal until you come to a river. You walk to the edge of the river. That's beautiful river rock. You feel the hot rocks on your feet. You step into the water. You feel the current. You're walking through, slightly slippery, so you have to manage. And you see that there, in the middle of the river, there's a flat stone. You go to the flat stone. You imagine your wet, cold feet on the hot, flat stone. You can feel the heat. You can feel your feet drying. You look around the flat stone and there's a fence, and there's 10 fishing lines with their lines out in the river. Each line is your energy line, and it's hooked into something. So you go to that little fence, you hold that fishing rod, you pull, it's stuck. You go, because I'm in the land of my imagination, I'm unhooking you, pal. So the fish floats, the fish goes, the rock unhooks. And then you start zzz, just like you were holding the fishing rod, you reel the line in, but you're reeling that line into yourself. So you do that, then you put the fishing line, the rod down, and you do all the other 9 or 3 or 6 or 30, however many you want to deal with that day. When that's done, you leave the flat rock, you get back into the water, cold feet, feeling the stones, you get back on the sand, on the beach stones, walk through the solal, find the path that leads back to your bedroom. And along the tree, there's all these coats. There's the code of responsibility. There's the code of feeling sorry for yourself. There's the code of exhaustion. There's the code of whatever. And you make a decision before you go back to your room. Are you going to put those coats back on? And if not, hallelujah.
Thank you so much. You know what, Bisia, you taught me that, I don't know, probably 28, 25 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever it was. And that was a daily ritual for me. Your third version there is the one that really resonated with me.
Oh, nice.
And it was a daily ritual for me for a very long time, so that I could do the work that I do in the world and be of service to me and to my family.
Yeah.
So I really thank you for sharing all of that.
Nice.
And I love all the different versions of it, because the bottom line is that we learn these things and then we make them ours.
Yeah.
With complete permission to personalize it and give it your own signature. So, but you know that we all need some daily practices to release, to honor and release, to come back to center. And that little pilot light has never gone out, ever.
Yeah. Nice.
Ever.
Nice.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I especially love the one of the women all together in the fishing boat, because it reminds me that we do have community and that we don't need to do everything alone. And sometimes it's easier for other people to spot where all my lines are or where my hooks are. And I forget, right? Oh, yeah, I don't need to be worrying and fussing about that. I can unhook and pull that energy back into myself. So we love the idea of a community of women, and we feel like that's what Ignite is. And we feel like you've really provided a lot of wisdom and inspiration today in this short or whatever we've been together.
Yeah.
And Bisia, is there anything you want to share with us before we complete, as far as further offerings you have, or a website, if people want to know more or participate in something you have coming up?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff coming up. I've committed to, within the Sound Body studio structure, there's 2 things I offer. One is an introduction to Sound Body, which is for singers or non-singers. And it's where you will experience, I'm not teaching you a song. I'm teaching you how to find a song. I'm teaching you how to find your voice and how to be in community when you find it, and to be witnessed by people when you find it. So within Sound Body intro, you experience voice works, because the voice works. To change your emotional state, the voice, using your voice works. Vocal body, which is part of that, it's so distinct method, but it's always slipped in. It talks about movement. So as I said before, right? Push, push, So we create pieces based on a movement. So that's psychologically important. So I'm offering a bunch of opportunities in July and August on a Wednesday night, 7:30 to 9 at Lynn Wiley's Yoga Studio. You can check that out on my website. It's soundbodystudio.ca, and you're looking for the Sound Body Introduction. The second thing I offer is called Sensing Anatomy, and the long title is Sensing the Flesh and Bones and Space of Your Anatomy. What I've learned as an RMT is that people don't know their bodies. They have no idea. They know where maybe their elbow is in their knee, and they know where body parts are when they hurt. But in terms of being a coordinated whole body, it's a rare thing, because most of us identify with the do I have this, the unicorn horn of attention goes this way. It doesn't go this way. So in Sensing Anatomy, we do things like use small props like this to massage each other's spines, to massage your sternum, to feel what your chest feels like. How does your arm connect to your chest? How's your armpit connected to your arm and your side ribs? How's this shoulder connected through the belly to your opposite hip? Blah, 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 right? On and on and on. The key is I'm getting you to touch yourself. So that's called the body wash. So the body wash has several versions of it. One is touch yourself. Touch your head. How's your head you're connected to your neck, your throat, your chest, your collarbone, your fingers, the whole thing, right? Then I guide you through different relationships I want you to explore. So where's your center line of your body? It goes from here, down your sternum, to your xiphoid, past your navel, to your pubic bone. That's your center line. You have one in the front and you have one in the back. Well, what if you went to the front body and the back body and you said, I want to connect the front back body in the space inside me. So between your navel and your low back, you're going to draw an imaginary line where they both meet. You breathe into that spot. So you're breathing into the space inside you. So you can go all the way up. Now, depending on all kinds of things, lots of people are extremely tight in their diaphragms and in their upper bellies. So for them to find the space between their xiphoid and their right around bra line, that could be terrifying. Oh, fine. So we go somewhere else. It's not a problem. And on and on and on and on until you become more familiar with holding yourself, touching yourself, reading yourself. Like people will say, I got a sore neck. So my son was here today with a sore neck. And I worked on his arm, his fingers, his elbow, his shoulder blade before I touched his neck. Then I did his jaw.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. So if you type all day, well, you're a brick. Because you
not in a good way.
Not in a good way. So look at what happens to me body, your elbows. If your elbows are squeezed into your ribs, you've already locked this. If you've locked this, you've locked that. Just an example.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I ask in Sensing Anatomy is, how do you create your own tension? I don't know. Okay, so I'll take you on a story. You're going to be driving your car in LA at high traffic. Show me how you hold the steering wheel. So what got tight? Your shoulders, your neck, your jaw, your back. La 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 la. Okay, so that's how you create tension.
Mm,
And then not only do you create it, you maintain it.
mm,
So understanding that is one thing, releasing it is another. So if I look at a very simple Feldenkrais lesson that was taught by David, sorry, I don't know your name, David. Breathing, if you catch yourself going for a walk and you're holding a fist, that means you're not breathing. If you hold a fist, hold both fists for half a second, and where do you get tight?
All the way up my arm to my back and neck.
Right. So if you hold the pencil hard, if you're on the computer, if you drive a car for dear life this way, whatever you do, whisking a spoon to mix the pancakes, right? Like it's everything is just so intense.
yeah.
So what David taught, which was so beautiful, is when you go for a walk and you see that you're holding a fist, just breathe. So break the pattern. So you break the pattern first by noticing that you're clenching your bum, your jaw, and your fists, or your elbows are really jammed into your ribs. Then just take, okay, or
Breathe.
Yeah. I see that somebody coming to experience this with you would be coming into tools for mindfulness, for challenging and altering patterns of how we hold ourselves, and tools that could become part of a daily practice or ritual, or part of our self-care, right?
And stress management.
Yeah.
When I think about, being a performer that I've been for years, and I've produced five big shows. When you're a vocalist and you're trained to be a vocalist, you are aware of what your breathing is doing. So if I can't hit a note, I know that high note is coming, but I'm not prepared. I'm anxious. I'm not going to hit the high note. But if I've been trained to be present to my vocal technique, then I'll prepare so I can hit that note. I'll depend on my breathing through my ribs so I can hit that note. To me, being a human requires a similar technique. It's, can I be present to myself when I wake up, when I walk from here to the kitchen, when I'm standing at the kitchen sink and I realize, oh, for God's sakes, I've just pushed my right hip right into the sink. That's not necessary. Or when I play piano and I realize that what I'm doing playing piano when I started was I'd be sitting on my left bum and my right one would be right in the air. Okay, after 20 minutes of playing piano, I'm exhausted. So as I learned to observe where I am in space, and how my flesh bones interact with space, can I give into space? The other concept is support. People don't know how to support themselves. You're great at supporting somebody else, but when you're sitting down and reading your book in bed, are you reading so that you don't have a pillow under your elbows? You don't have a pillow under your back? Your knees aren't bent, but you're reading like this, and then you push your skull back so that you can read? You're creating tension before you go to bed. So developing that, what happens in mindfulness meditation is the same thing. You're present to who you are as you cruise through your day.
Yeah. As you were saying that, I reminded myself while driving, I would say, are you relaxed? And I'd be like, oh no. Oh, and I'd put my shoulders down and I'd feel my arms were tight. And I'm like, relax. You don't have to be tight while you're driving.
Yeah.
You're aware, you're conscious, but your body doesn't have to be in this state of preparation for disaster, right? It's like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So Tai Chi does the same thing. Tai Chi will say to you, in order for me to get up from this chair to stand up requires an action. So I'm going to prepare for the action, stand up, and then relax. I'm not going to keep the prepared to take me across the room like this.
Right.
But I'm in my body. I know where the floor is. I'll say yes to the floor, and the floor and I will have a conversation. I can push off, and I can get my momentum to go across the room.
Beautiful.
But when you're overthinking, you're worried, you're worried, you're anxious, you're depressed, you're on a schedule, you're late, you're here, you're not there.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's not a judgment. It's just, what's the tool to keep you here
Yeah.
while you end up going there?
Well, that sounds like a great class. So can you
So-
just remind people again the website and go ahead.
So soundbodystudio.ca or Bisia Belina. 2 offerings. One is Sensing Anatomy, and those are on Friday mornings in July and one Saturday in August. And then there's the Sound Body Intro, which is about voice, movement, and expression. So there will be singing. There will be singing.
Yeah.
Well, and we have more to look forward to as we invite you into Ignite in different ways. So we
Thank
will
you.
continue to nourish this relationship in ways, and we hope that our Ignite community will reach out to you, because and Alice and I are so happy to have you here, because we at Ignite talk a lot about self-love and self-care, and everything you've said today has been just dinging those bells
Yeah.
in terms of mindfulness, alignment, honoring and releasing, practices and tools to come back when we overextend ourselves and overattach and get in our heads and get out of flow and alignment back in, and having ways to access that awareness so that we can have tools to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. This was delightful to hang out with you too.
That's
Delightful.
awesome. Thank you so much, Bisia. You're such an inspiration. I just love talking with you.
Thank you.
As our viewers and listeners can hear, Bisia has a ton to offer. It's not just her 2 offerings, but just your experiences in life come through everything you do. And thank you, such a blessing.
So, mwah.
Living passionately, joyfully, in alignment, and moving forward.
Yes, rock on, girls.
Okay,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
bye for now.
Day.